And hello everyone, and welcome back into this video. And again, we're previewing, or not previewing, but this is talking, we're doing some comparison to the Crossroads League projections compared to my projections that I recorded in my videos I believe it was last month. So that's what we're going to be doing in this video as well. And I just recorded a video talking about the men's side because that's super competitive. So now let's talk about the women's side of things. And now on the women's side, this is where it gets a little bit more interesting in terms of the teams. Now, looking at well, first, before we dive into that, let's talk about the Crossroads League preseason all league. And again, this is on the women's side. So on these are all players on the first team for preseason all league. We had Abby McNally for Marion, Callie Gregory, St. Francis, Liv Raby for Huntington, Taylor Double, Marion, Isabella Gizzi, St. Francis, Bailey Kellum, Huntington, Renna Schweiderman, St. Francis, who, by the way, is a transfer from University of Purdue Fort Wayne, which is NCAA Division I. Then we also had Megan Zeitz from Spring Arbor, Angela Roshak, Mount Vernon Nazarene, and Mariah Claywell from Bethel. And on the second team, Morgan Hauk, Grace, Kenna Kirby, Marion, Emily Mattingly from Indiana Wesleyan, Julia Mantilla, St. Francis, Olivia Nickerson, Bethel, Emma Foll, Taylor, Ellie Kelleher, Indiana Wesleyan, Madison Bailey, Marion, Olivia Faust, Marion, and Kylie McNally, Marion. So, again, congratulations to all of those players for getting the preseason award. Getting named the preseason all league. All league preseason. Preseason all league. Again, congratulations to all of those players for that achievement. So let's dive in to the video on the women's side in terms of your official Crossroads League projections compared to my projections. And this time I'm going to start on the bottom and work our way up because there's a lot to talk about the closer we get to the top. So starting on the bottom, the Crossroads League has Goshen, and again, this is on the women's side. The Crossroads League has Goshen projected last in that number 10 spot. Remember, there's 10 teams in the Crossroads League, and 8 out of those 10 make the Crossroads League tournament, which starts toward the very last week of February for the quarterfinals, and then a couple days later for the semifinals, and then a couple days after that for the Crossroads League championship game. So you had Goshen projected 10th. That is exactly where I had them projected. And then you had 8th and 9th, Mount Vernon Nazarene and Taylor projected in that 8 and 9 spot, actually tied for 8th. Now, compared to where I had them projected, I also had Mount Vernon Nazarene finishing 8th. So that's exactly dead on to where, or spot on, I should say, exactly spot on to where I had them projected. Taylor tied for finishing 8th according to the Crossroads League. I have Taylor finishing 7th, so literally spot on for Mount Vernon Nazarene and Taylor. And then Grace is projected 7th. I have them projected finishing 6th, so pretty much right, spot on for Grace, Mount Vernon Nazarene, and Taylor, minus flip-flopping those teams for those couple spots. And then Bethel this year was projected 9th last year. They finished 7th last year. And last year they were projected 9th. They finished 7th. This year they're projected 6th. I have them projected finishing 9th. So, I can see why they're projected a little bit higher this year. But again, these are just projections. Take them with a grain of salt. So really, in terms of teams projected 6th to 10th, outside of a few swaps for positions, in terms of flip-flopping some of those teams around, basically 6th to 10th is literally about spot on where I have all those teams projected as well, meaning Bethel, Grace, Mount Vernon, Nazarene, Taylor, and Goshen. So Not really a big surprise there in terms of those projections. And again, that's exactly how I see it. Again, minus flip-flopping, some of those teams around toward the bottom. Now, looking at fifth and fourth, in terms of, again, this is the women's side, teams projected fifth and fourth respectively. Spring Arbor is projected to finish fifth. Huntington projected to finish fourth. And now, for these two teams, believe it or not, this is exactly where I had these two teams projected to finish exactly. I also had Spring Arbor projected fifth, Huntington projected fourth. And now for these two teams, they're really talented. For Spring Arbor, they've roughly been around that number 3 to 4 spot the last few years under head coach John Williams, who's done a phenomenal job. Now, their biggest loss this year is Alana Nelson, who originally played at a lower down college and then transferred to Spring Arbor. And she's actually playing at University of Purdue Fort Wayne this year because of the extra year for the NCAA rule. So obviously, I hope that she does really, really well there. But now for Spring Arbor, they're still loaded with talent. They actually have a transfer this year coming in from NCAA Division II Tiffin University. And again, I know that they're talented down low. They're going to have a little bit more of the outside shooting this year than what they did last year. But I honestly, I can really see them, getting up to that number 5, number 4 spot. So I definitely agree with the league's projection of them. And for Huntington, now Huntington's a team that finished 5th last year. And honestly, they had their best year yet under head coach Darby Maggard. They made the NAIA National Tournament for the first time in 10 years and went out to Hastings, Nebraska and upset LSU Shreveport, and then lost them a second round to Hastings, the host school, in that pod. But this is a team that I really, really think is going to do even better this year. Now, their biggest loss is Gabby Melby, who played phenomenal her last 3 years as a Lady Forster. She's actually going to be on the sideline this year as a graduate assistant. So I know she's going to do a great job. And now this is a team that, I remember back in the 23/24 season, the Forsters finished 8th that year. However, in that season, they were an extremely young team. They actually gave Iowa a run for their money at Huntington, and Iowa was down at one point 17, 18 points, come back to win 77-70. And now I remember at that time, some of the announcers at Huntington said that this is a team that's going to get better and better within the next couple of years, and that was truly the case. And then of course you had 23-24. They actually 22. I think it was 22-23. They were 8th in the conference. 23-24. They finished tied for 5th, and they actually were 6th because Grace held the higher Massey rating tiebreaker. And then last year they went up to 5th, or ended up finishing 5th last year. And this is a team that I really, really think can easily finish 4th this year. And of course, they are headlined by a big junior class: Bailey Kellum, Annika Nelson, Kendall Yoakum, as well as Liv Raby. And these are the big 4 that I really, really expect to lead the Lady Forsters very, very well this year. And I definitely agree with the league's projection of them finishing 4th. I don't think they can get up to that number 3 spot. Again, they could, but I just think the competition level to get up to that number 3 spot is going to be extremely, extremely tough for them. So I really, really think they'll at least finish in that number 4 spot this year and get the chance to host their first ever home playoff game in the opening round. So that should be really, really exciting. And then you look further up the list at the top 3. Now, of course, in that number 3 spot is Indiana Wesleyan. Of course, the Wildcats last year, they were the 1 seed. They were the 2 seed the year before. They were the 1 seed last year, won the regular season and conference tournament game. And now their biggest, they've lost a ton of players from last year. So obviously for them, this might be a little bit of a down year, a little bit of a rebuilding year. Now they're projected third in preseason. So when the preseason top 25 poll comes out, I really expect them probably to be down ranked between roughly about 17th to 20th. Which, believe it or not, they were actually ranked in that same area back in the 2020/21 season, where they were actually ranked 16th, and I believe that year they finished 12-6, and I think it was 13-5. I'm going to see if I can go back and view that real quick. Yeah, they were 12-4. I stand corrected. They were 12-4 that year, but part of that was because of COVID. And now, of course, for me, I talked about all the teams lower down, roughly projected 6th to 10th, where I had them projected. Huntington and Spring Arbor 4th and 5th. That's exactly where I have those two teams finishing in exact order. Now, for that number 3 spot, I have St. Francis finishing 3rd. The league has IWU finishing 3rd. And again, I can see why they have the Wildcats finishing 3rd. I just think that if the Wildcats if they can keep everybody healthy and pick up some big wins, if they can get at least one win versus St. Francis and Marion in the regular season, I really, really think the Wildcats can get up to at least that number 2 spot and get themselves in a little bit better position to host a second round home tournament game. Because obviously, if you're the 3 seed and things finish exactly where the league projects, you would have the Wildcats go down to Indianapolis to take on the Lady Knights in the second round. And that would be an extremely tough game and a very, very tough environment. Of course, I visited Marion last year. It was one of the last 2 Crossroads League schools I had never been to. Of course, the other one was Grace. But, and just being at Marion last year for the very first time, that is probably the number 1 toughest environment to play in. And if I'm the Lady Wildcats, I do not want to be in that number 3 spot. I would rather be in either that number 1 or 2 spot, to where, as long as you take care of business at home in the opening round, you're guaranteed to host a second round game. So now, obviously, if you're the 1 seed, you're more than likely going to get either Spring Arbor or Huntington in the second round. If you're the number 2 seed, you're more than likely going to get St. Francis in the second round. So I guess, it's kind of, it is what it is, I guess, so to speak, but it's going to be very, very interesting to see how it plays out. The Lady Knights projected 2nd. Now, last year they finished 3rd, and I believe they were projected 3rd last year, and that's exactly where the Lady Knights finished. And, of course, they're coming off of a great year last year, went to the Elite 8, and lost to the NAIA National Champion Dordt. And I can see why Marion's projected 2nd. They are loaded with talent once again. But I just think that the Knights are going to finish 1st. I really, really, pardon me, I just really, really think that this is a team that can easily shock some people and end up finishing 1st in the Crossroads League. So, for Marion, I could see them going 15-3 in conference, maybe even 16-2. I don't see them running the table in the Crossroads League. I really don't see them only losing 1 game in league play, considering they went 15-3 last year. And their 3 league losses, 2 of which were to St. Francis, and then the other was to Indiana Wesleyan, which was at Marion, by the way, last year. And that was the first win for the Wildcats in Indianapolis in the regular season in 9 years. So obviously, it's a really, really tough team. And I just think Marion's going to finish 1st. I really, really do. And then obviously the last team in that number 1 spot is St. Francis. And now this is a team that finished 2nd last year, and played really, really well. Now, obviously for St. Francis, they've lost some really good players. They lost Allie Madden, Cassidy Crawford, which those 2 players were 2 of their best forwards/centers down low in the post, and one of their biggest losses was Chloe McKnight, who was a phenomenal 3-point shooter. Now, for head coach Jeremy Henney, who's in his 4th year this year, he's got a lot of talented players, got a big transfer, like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, from University of Purdue, Fort Wayne. But this is a team to where, I don't think they're going to finish first. Now, I mean, I can understand why they're projected to finish first. I really, really do. I can understand why they're projected to finish first, but I mean, to me, I mean, it's tough though because obviously, even the best of the best teams, lose some star players, due to injuries or maybe they transfer. It all depends. But I just, to me, it's kind of tough. And again, the way I think it's as competitive as what we've seen with volleyball this year. I mean, in volleyball, you had Huntington and Bethel that were easily projected 6th or 7th, and here Huntington is on women's volleyball tied for 2nd going into tonight's game against Mount Vernon Nazarene, who, by the way, is now ranked 12th in the latest top 25 poll, their highest ranking ever in program history. Their previous high was 13. That was set back in 2007 and where they were previously ranked at. So big congratulations to them on the volleyball side for being the highest ranked team ever in program history. But, and obviously for, and you look at that and I think based on what we've seen with volleyball this year, I could really see basketball going the same way, especially on the women's side between St. Francis, Indiana Wesleyan, and Marian. I just don't think St. Francis is going to finish first. Again, I could be wrong. Obviously, these are just projections. Anything can happen. Anybody can beat anybody, and we've definitely seen that on the women's volleyball side this year so far, and there's still 7 more games of conference play starting tonight. Now, after tonight, there will only be 6 games left of conference, but I just think that St. Francis is going to finish 3rd. I think Marian has the slight advantage to finishing 1st. I think Indiana Wesleyan has a slight advantage over St. Francis finishing 2nd and then St. Francis 3rd. At least that's how I see it compared to how the league sees it. But again, like I said, anything can happen. Anybody can beat anybody. It's going to be very interesting and fun to watch. That is for sure. And of course, Crossroads League play starts next month. Wednesday, November 19th is when league play starts. And I plan on being at the Indiana Wesleyan game versus Goshen that night and beginning at 5 o'clock. Should be a lot of fun to be there. And then, of course, the 2 biggest games in December for the Wildcats, at least in terms of conference, are going to be that home game against St. Francis December 3rd and then at Huntington Saturday, December 6th. And those are going to be the two games of the week by far. So really, really excited to attend those, at least weather permitting, because we don't, Ohio and Indiana weather is very unpredictable, especially in the dead of winter, especially being bitter cold and potentially snow and ice. And we obviously hope and pray that none of those 3 things are the case. We hope it's another mild winter because that would be pretty awesome. But again, so that wraps up this video doing some comparisons to where the league predicts these teams to be. And I really, really hope that you enjoyed this very thorough analysis of the season predictions from the Crossroads League as opposed to my predictions that I talked about in my video last month. And if you did miss that video I recorded last month, go down to Matt's Sports Talk Season 2 playlist. You can catch up to all the episodes there as well. And I'm going to when I upload this video and the men's video that I recorded a few minutes ago, I'm going to put both of those under that same playlist as well, Matt Sports Talk Season 2, so that you easily can find those as well. And so again, thanks so much for watching this video. I really, really appreciate it. And if it was helpful to you, please either like, comment down below, or subscribe to my channel. Any one of those options helps me out greatly. So I really, really appreciate you tuning in to watch this video. And I'm wearing my lucky red Indiana Wesleyan shirt because their women's soccer team is coming into town tonight to play Mount Vernon Nazarene. So I'm going to be there. It's going to be a great game. Let's go Wildcats. We've got this. And it's going to be a great game. By the way, the women's soccer team is now ranked 6th, which is their highest ranking since 2010 when they were ranked 5th at that time. So, man, it's going to be an awesome, awesome night tonight. Looking forward to it. Let's go, Cats. And again, thanks so much for watching this video. Have a great and blessed rest of your day and week. And may God bless you and your family always.